Welcome, everybody, to the TACBox podcast. Here we are on a Tuesday recording our podcast, Dale, episode 43, I think.
43. Yeah,
I know
43. Yep.
we're inching there. We're
Yeah.
beyond my age at this point. So now it's just kind of like, we're going.
There
But
you
hey,
go.
we're we're at like 900 and some subscribers on YouTube. So if you haven't subscribed to us on YouTube, just go over and hit the subscribe button. It's kind of cool. We'll get to 1,000 and it's like you get to the big leagues when you get to 1,000. Things just start
Yeah.
flowing good. You got some credibility.
Here's a fun fact. Tommy Lee Jones was 43 years old when he filmed Lonesome Dove.
And when was that
Which
filmed?
I think at 89. I think it's
Okay, yeah.
89. In 89. Tommy Lee was 43, and I think Robert Duvall was like 51 or something like that. And I thought to myself at that time, damn, those are two old dudes, super old, crazy old, but 43. So there you have it.
And then it catches up and you get there and you're just like,
Now you're going, well, that ain't old at all.
and that's not old. No.
Yeah. Well, shit. It's cute when I do it. So what are we talking about today?
Well, in this episode today, one of the things that I've been getting questions on from people is kennel setups. And
Mhm.
if they were to build a kennel, maybe they're going to move from we're raising puppies in our house and we want to have an external kennel, or we're just getting into dog breeding, or we're moving, anything along those lines. They want to kind of know our top 10 things that we want or necessities in a kennel. So, and I was kind of thinking a little bit about this, and it's like, man, I could go so many different ways because we want to go super like, well, your kennel building definitely needs a roof, or do we want to get it down into like the nitty gritty small details? So I know you made a list.
I
I
made a
sort of
list.
have a list. And so we'll just kind of run through that. Do you want to start at number 10 and kind of work our way down? Did you organize them in importance, or do you just have 10
Hell
things?
no. No,
Okay.
I did
No.
not run it by Chat GPT. Would you put this in a printable format and put them in reverse order? No, I did not. So we
Okay,
won't
so
have
we're just
like
gonna have 10
stars. Like
things. It's not like
there's gonna be
it's
10,
not like
10 things.
okay. They're all
Yeah, it's
important.
not.
They're all important.
They're all important. You need all of them for different reasons. But the first thing that I think that you should have, no matter what you have, if you're having a kennel, dog room, whatever, and is actually required, but with the American Kennel Club, is you should have an emergency plan. And that emergency plan should be kind of like, picture this, you're dead.
I don't like picturing that.
Yeah. Picture this, you're dead. And so now someone's coming in to the kennel, to your dogs, and they're like going, what are we going to do? All right. Or maybe you're just arrested and they need to figure out, so what are we going to do with, how is this going to go? So like, say, if there's a power outage, who am I supposed to call? What's your power provider? Do we have an evacuation plan? As far as like, if there's like, one year we woke up at like 1:00 in the morning by the sheriff, and there was a fire coming our way, and we had to evacuate our dogs. We had a big bunch of dogs. Had kennel, had client dogs, had all of this stuff. And at that moment in time, I realized I didn't have enough crates for the dogs I had on premises. And I was like rolling down the window of Jane's mom's car and dropping dogs in like pennies in a piggy bank, because they were going to make us evacuate. And she goes driving off like the little old lady in the shoe, little chin and cockers and cavaliers, their faces out the window all over. But yeah, evacuation. What's that look like? What do we have to do that with? Do we have a generator if the power is out? I mean, last 5 years, we've had some brownouts and stuff. Do you have a generator? What is that kind of, your water company, propane? All of this needs to be on your list. If you have dogs out with handlers, they're dogs that are somewhere else. If you have, people that you have your dogs with, it should be on your plan. because if something happens to you, these people need to be able to contact them. You know, you need to have your AKC inspector's number on your plan. And you should probably have your legal representative if anything should happen. You know, you should have all of that on your emergency plan, because sometimes when emergencies happen, we're not as clear thinking as maybe we should be. But that emergency plan, that needs to be taped by the door, and it needs to have the stuff that if someone could come in and do your dog, or if you in the middle of a flip out, could go in there, take care of these dogs, figure out how they are. But I think that's an important 101 for whatever you have for your kennel.
Yeah, definitely a solid one. And I think a lot of people are probably gonna, I mean, me included to a point, you kind of think like, I'm young, I'm not going to die. We naturally go to die. Like, well, my wife will take it, or or whatever. Or we might think, well, we only have 3 or 4 dogs, like not that big of a deal, until something happens. And so it's like, if you kind of have to have the mindset of, we think about the safety of our dogs in a lot of aspects, but the emergency plan isn't usually something that pops into our mind when we're like the safety of our dogs. But realistically, you only have 4 dogs, something happens, and these 4 dogs are in your house alone on their own, like, you need to know what you're gonna do with these dogs if something were
Who
to
are they going to
happen,
call?
whether
Yeah.
it's 2 or 20, you gotta have
Yeah.
that in place, so
Well,
that's
I
a
mean,
super
and
good
they
one.
have, yeah, they have to, that person that comes in, because if car accident, whatever, anything happens, they've got to go. Well, they should be able to go in and contact your co-owners. They should be able. Otherwise, sometimes like when things go wrong and emergency services comes in and there's no anything to go with that, then it involves animal control. As so those chin puppies are going to get taken down to the shelter and put in a run, that kind of thing. So you have to have kind of thinking like and maybe you have deposits on, maybe they're people's dogs, maybe you have somebody else's dog there. You need to be able to have like a living inventory, and that emergency plan is something that is just AKC does require you to have it, and I think it's a valid thing that if you have the dogs, when things are on a bright sunny day when nothing's going wrong, just jot down some numbers, and put it together.
Sounds like a good thing to have, and definitely something that's on the top of the list for items to have when you have any dogs, much
Yeah,
less
sure.
a breeding program.
Multiples, yeah,
Yeah.
multiples and puppies, right? So
Alright,
what's on your
next
list?
item. Oh, you want me to go? Okay, so
Yeah, throw one of yours.
I feel like, mine's not nearly as good as yours, but that's why 2 minds come up with these things, and because we think differently. So, one of the top ones for me would be good vet resource, reproductive vet resource, or access to medications yourself.
That's
So,
an excellent one.
I mean, you
You know,
gotta have a place if your dog gets sick.
you gotta have your pharmacy set up there,
Yeah.
because that's when emergencies happen. It's like, so do I have Serenia? Do I have stuff for diarrhea? Do I have metronidazole? I mean, all of that stuff. My dog, you have that window of treatment, so you need to open up that bag of life, where you have your little tackle box with all your stuff that you've kept. You know, yeah, no, that's a solid one. I
I mean, a
I
lot of
think
it's location based. If you live 30 miles from the nearest vet, you kinda
mm,
need to have some stuff on hand that you can. I
absolutely.
mean, you might not have 30 minutes to react. Now, if you're,
Yeah.
best friends with the vet and you're in this tiny town and, your vet can come over at 1 in the morning and be there in 5 minutes
Awesome.
because,
Yeah.
great, great, but we don't all have that situations. A lot of people live a distance out in rural areas where there's not a vet super close. Like, you gotta be able to handle things, if they're outside in the yard and they step
Get
on
bit by a
something,
bee.
or
I
get
had
bit
a
by a
I had a
bee.
f I had a Frenchie got bit in the face by a bee, and his face was swelling up so fast. I thought first I looked out and went, "Boy, he's gotten a lot of face." His face was really filling out, and then all of a sudden he looked like one of the Real Housewives, and it's like it's growing by the minute. I'm like, so was like, luckily, I had dexamethasone. I was able to give him a shot, you know, but that could have gotten really bad really fast. That would, but having maybe fluids, stuff for diarrhea, just the basic 101 stuff along to do your stuff is definitely a thing in there. One thing that here's one of mine. And seems like a basic one. How you keep your dog food. I use garbage cans, uh, because the first time, dog food's expensive, and the first time you leave bags on the floor and they get wet, something gets into them, whatever happens, it's like, wow, that's a big loss, and if you have somewhere where you have to have a kennel license, they're going to require it. But trash cans for your dog food, a good thing. Like that a lot. You don't Those bags do not protect the food.
Hey, everybody. Sorry for the interruption, but I just need to take a moment and remind you to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast network, wherever you're listening to this right now. Make sure you're subscribed. Hit a thumbs up button. Make sure you show us that you like this content, that we're doing good. Help us grow. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Now back to the show. Right. And it sounds funny to think of like trash cans for dog food, but it's like they're clean Rubbermaid containers, like it
Absolutely.
just you can get
I
trash
just
cans
pretend it's
big.
a large Ziploc,
Yeah.
you know. But they also, what's kind of fun is especially they have like those roller bases that go underneath them,
Mm.
and you can tootle around with it. You can just take
Now,
that.
is there I don't live in a state with kennel license currently, so I'm just deferring this question to you. Is it
Mhm.
if you have kennel inspections and rules and regulations, is there any sort of rule saying like it has to be 6 inches off the ground? Like I know in food service, you have all your stored stuff has to be on a rack off the ground.
They would, I mean, so they're going to want your food to be in something that's impervious to moisture or uh, vermin. That's gonna be so it's gonna have to be something where you can keep them, dry and clean. So if you're storing dry goods, you have to have it on a pallet, you know, that kind of thing. You can, where you can put bait underneath it and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's a thing. You're definitely gonna want to have that. But food storage, it's a good plan. One year, I had I don't know, 6, 8 bags of food, and I had just unloaded it, and the washing machine backed up, and it flooded the floor, and it ruined all my food, you know, and 'cause I hadn't gotten it put away yet. It's like, "Ouch." That was an expensive mistake, and it's a big mess. So, like I said, having those places to keep your food dry and safe is a really good one.
For sure. That's again, it doesn't even matter how many dogs you have. Food's expensive, and it's one of those
It's super
expenses that
expensive.
whether it's my grocery bill for my family or for the dogs, it's like it's something you're always paying attention to. And it's like nobody likes to
Mhm.
throw bad food away. It's a waste of
No,
money. So
it's a waste of money. Alright, so what's one of yours?
I have air control. I don't think it's something that we think about on a lot of aspects. We just kind of just like, yeah, we're gonna do this. But how
Yep.
important, I mean, breed specific, how important is it to your breed to make sure that they don't ever hit 80 degrees? You got a nice air
Right,
conditioner that's going to keep
right.
them cool and protect them, or a heater in the winter to keep them warm. But
For
beyond
me,
that,
that's it.
what about humidity and
3 prongs.
purification?
Dehumidifiers. Dehumidifiers, wonderful, because nothing keeps the odor out of the kennel better than a dehumidifier, and it's so much keeps upper respiratory down. Wonderful things. I run them all year round. I mean, dehumidifiers are great. You know, I think depending as to where you live, layered air conditioning systems are a really great idea. I don't like to have all of my AC on one circuit. So I want to go ahead and so in case you have something go out, you're not going to, when it could be potentially too hot. So that's really important. So ventilation and climate control is really, really important. And then if you're going to be gone, and I think that but now with, like, with the cameras and everything, you can monitor your temperature in with your dogs, which is super cool. There should be no reason that you should come back to animals that are in distress or, losing animals to like that kind of thing. I mean, because especially if you live somewhere warm, you look around that corner. That can happen.
Yeah, and it's like I'm the techie nerdy guy like that is like I'll have all that stuff on my phone where it's like I can change the temperature in the kennel from my phone and make sure
Nice.
that everything's right and all of that stuff. That I mean, if that's something you have to pay attention to, you might as well make it easier for you to be able to
Mhm.
pay attention to
Sure.
because as we've talked about before, it's like the more work you make for yourself, the less likely you are to maintain and continue to do it. We need to have things, even like
Simplistic.
yeah, like light control, with these newer technologies and systems, it's like you can
Mhm.
just set your lights up via an app and then control them. Say you want the dogs to have dark sleeping times from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. or something. It's like you could
Sure.
program your lights just to turn on and off at certain times.
Very cool.
So
And
technology
you
is
know
cool.
what? And technology is excellent. But I'll tell you one thing that whatever with your air conditioners, and I think this is a really basic thing. People plug them in and they plug them in and they have it's going good, whether it's a mini split or an AC unit or whatever, and they think that they can just set it like it was in their house. The kennel is not exactly the same as your house. I mean, because 'cause you're grooming and stuff, there's hair going around in there, especially if you have chin, and you've got to really be mindful, and you've gotta have, like, a set pattern, like, I do the filter this day, this day, this day, this day. So for, like, me, I personally take the filters out every other day, and then, like, when I'm gone, I mean, it's like, the first thing I get back, I clean the filters because that was, animals around air conditioners and stuff, they pull all that in, coats out your coils, it'll freeze up your thing. It's just really important. So you've really got to keep those AC units clean, clean, clean because they're operating under less than ideal circumstances.
Well, and it seems like a lot of work, but it's really it doesn't take that
It's
long to
5
clean out a
minutes.
filter, and
It's
that
5
can
minutes.
destroy that air conditioner so fast,
It
and now
can
you're
last
thousands of
years
dollars.
instead of right. It can last years or it can last a season. It's your call, but maintenance on that is everything.
All right. So, what about, well, I guess, just speaking of air control, how important is it to have like an air purifier? Is that a thing, or is it not terrible thing? Because if you're running an AC, like if you live
If you
south,
got
you're running
AC
an
and
AC
the
every day, so it's filtering the air,
yeah,
right?
I mean, always appreciate people that, can get their air purifier and their Sensi's going and all that. That's awesome. It's not me, but, good for you. But I think if you got ventilation and you got dehumidifiers and air conditioners and heat going, I think you're probably good.
As
But
long as you
you
clean
wanna
those
do
filters.
more? Party on. Absolutely. Go
Yeah,
have a
you just did a shout out to Sensi. I mean, that just reminds me of like year 2002. Like like wow. It's been a while since
there you
I've
go.
heard. You remember that when everybody was selling that shit all the
Yep,
time? Like
sure
that much
do.
sense. Oh my gosh. You know,
Yeah.
give this video a thumbs up if you guys remember that in 2000. My gosh. All right, what do you got?
Fire extinguishers.
Yeah.
Fire extinguishers and smoke alarms. This is a thing that we can't be too careful on, smoke alarms, fire extinguishers, make sure they stay in good repair. Hope you never, ever, ever have to use them. That's the plan. Have them and they'll that you can throw them away because 'cause they're no good and have to get another one, and hopefully you'll never have to use that one either. But if you do have to use it, wow. What else? There's nothing else that can, 'cause you're running dryers, you've got stuff in there. It can happen. You're running heating pads, maybe heat lamps, fire extinguishers, you know, being aware of where your circuit breaker box is and your smoke alarms super important because you got one shot at turning a really bad situation around and you either make it or break it.
And that's something that I mean, I think everybody kind of like if you're a in-home dog keeper or breeder, you got a dog room or a garage, is just kind of like you don't think about that because, like, your house already has it. But if you're talking external kennels,
Mhm.
a lot of people take sheds, build them out, turn them into a nice kennel. It's like, is
Sure,
that
or their
something that
garage.
anybody thinks
Their
about?
garage.
I was like,
Yeah,
probably not, So that's a really good one. And it kinda goes like what we were just talking about with air control too, is like your dog kennel most likely is a bigger fire hazard than your house because of
it
all
is.
that fur and hair floating around, and then it gets onto something hot, could spark a fire, it gets in you got
Yep, that
one
fast.
of the next thing that I was gonna mention, it kinda goes in hand with that, and you mentioned it as well. So it's like fire control, fire extinguishers. Is that in a kennel licensed state with kennel inspections? Is that, on the
Yes,
checklist, like a requirement?
it is. It is.
Which it should be. I mean, that's a really
It
good
should
thing and
be.
helps you
Yeah,
remember, that you need
yeah,
that.
yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, yeah, one of those expenses where it's like it sucks setting it up. It's
But
like a generator, probably less than a generator,
man,
but same kind of aspects. Like I don't want to spend the money to do this, but if I never need it, that would be great. Like
yeah. I mean,
hope to
I
never
have whole
use this
house
generator.
generator.
But
Yeah, I have a whole house generator, and we use it a couple times a year. Something will happen, and they'll kick on, and I'm just like going, and it's like a couple of years ago, they had a big brownout down through Texas. I was like really glad those whole house generators came on and everything kept going because we had propane, but we also that electricity. Those you don't. You're not. You think to yourself, "Oh, I won't need that," until you need it, and then you're glad you have it.
yeah, and then it's one of those, you also have that mindset of like, well, I can just go, to Fleet Farm and buy a generator. It's like, well, if you're out of power and everybody else is, the generators are no longer there. They sold out,
No.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Right.
And it's like area specific too. And so thinking of Texas is like you're probably not going to lose power in January. You're going to lose it in July when it's 105 degrees and you
Exactly.
need that generator. Like that,
Exactly.
it's
You
kind of
just
it's
had
like
a
in
big
South Dakota. You're not going to lose power in the summertime for extended
nope.
periods of time when you don't need it. You're going to lose it in the winter when it's -5 degrees out and you need heat.
That's when
That's
the
just how
lines
it
are coming
works.
down. Yep, for sure.
Yep. So that's a okay. So that was fire extinguishers and smoke alarms. Super great for the safety of your animals. Um, and you mentioned this when you're talking about fires. A washer and a dryer, I feel like, is super important to a kennel because if you want,
Laundry,
yeah,
laundry, absolutely.
you're gonna have
Yes.
so much laundry, even with only 2 or 3 dogs. Yeah, their bedding, their towels, their
It's
all their things. You
just
don't want that in your normal clothes washer and dryer.
it really is a lot of cleanup to do to make that, like, where you wanna use that again, but laundry is a good one, and one thing, like, with your washing machine and all that, that's depending as to where you live, that's gray water. So, you might run that down your runs or just out into the grass or into a flower bed or whatever, you know, that's not black water. That can be recycled into some plan to sort of, disposal. Uh, you're gonna use your washer and dryer, I mean, a lot. I love the Speed Queen commercials that we use. Those are the ones that actually, because sometimes when I get thrifty and I wanna, like, buy them on estate sales and stuff like that, I'm like going, "Oh, look, I got this washer for $35," you know? It's great until it blows up after you used it for 6 weeks, and now you have, like, a more yard art you wanna haul off to the recycling place, so Speed Queen commercials, love them. 'Em, they're great, not with a lot of gadgets on there, just kinda like deep fill, there you go.
Wash, just wash,
Wash, wash, there you
And
go.
that's one of those investments and one of those things too where it's like, don't really wanna spend $5,000 on a washer, but, long term, if it lasts you 20 years in the kennel, I mean, that pays off because 'cause you're gonna go pick up these, household
Well,
washers.
I
You're gonna
think it's
destroy those.
yeah, they're not gonna hold up because they're not meant for that, but I wanna say they're like 1,500, 1,800, something like that.
Oh,
Not
they're not
bad,
that bad
not
then.
bad.
No.
Yeah, yeah, not that bad. I mean, they can and they actually spin things down where they're, like, actually where because that's one thing with a lot of, like, regular washers, they won't get the pads spun down enough where they're really wet, and so you're gonna get to run some quality time in the dryer, and, but that's laundry is a biggie. Man, you can't get around not having laundry is something that will make you happy every day.
Yeah, and
Alright,
then that's one of those, like, again, even with 4 or 5 dogs, washing that in your household, we got a four-person household, and then so you throw 4 people's laundry on top of dog laundry, and it's just like that washer and dryer are gonna wear out quick, and if you're dealing
quick.
with dogs that shed, there's gonna be hair all over the place, like, yeah.
And even when you're being super careful and you, like, shake them out and all that, and it's like, "Oh, what do I have in my pocket? Why, it's a little turd,"
Yeah.
Like, how like, Dale, did you wipe out the washer after that? Like, "Sure did, babe, got it," Maybe not so
And then
good.
if you have boys that you belly band, I mean, that's a lot of belly band
Ooh,
pee, you know?
remember
Yeah, it's
remember when you before Tyson, they used to before they threw the diapers away and said, "To hell with the environment." They reused the diapers, and they had
oh my god,
the diaper bucket, and it's like a cute little baby on a little yellow bucket, and it made your whole damn house smell like you had cats or something, and it's like, no, worse, I had kids, and they'd add Clorox to it, and they just shove those diapers in the diaper bucket, you know yeah, no, this is having your laundry for your personal use is something that you'll be really glad you did. It's money well spent. You know, I think that's an excellent one. One thing that kind of ties into the other stuff, but microchips and a microchip reader, super important because for whatever reason you can't make it back to your kennel. Someone can go through there and scan, identify, and go, "Oh, well, this is Tyson's dog, or this is this, and this is that," because you can identify them. If something should happen to you and you can identify your dogs, then you have a big problem. This happens periodically when people kinda get old and gorked out, and they kinda come in, they find a big bunch of dogs, and those dogs are lost to the gene pool because who are they? What are they? And I mean, and like the other day, I was washing some Cavalier puppies, and they're all from the same stud dog, 2 different litters, all the same color, and the little handy dandy divider that goes in between the cage dryers thing, because litter A is here and litter B is there, and that kind of came out, and they were just like all of a sudden like in the goldfish bowl, and they were like everywhere. Well, that would have been a really bad day, but they were all chipped. And so you can go beep, you're here, beep, you're there. So microchip reader and chipping your puppies, wonderful stuff. I mean, it's makes things go so easy. Like especially if you're saying, come by my house and such and check this dog. And well, it's like they all look different to us, but to somebody else, all you little furry people look alike to me. You know, that's a way, it's a way I can if I have one of my friends as breeds terriers and they're all the same color. And if I have to go over to his house to do something with one of his dogs, I'll double check it with the chip. So I'm sure I have the right dog. You know, it's just no way getting around it. That's a good thing. Microchips, microchip reader.
Is that required for AKC inspections,
It
or is it just
is.
okay?
Why, yes, it is.
Because I was gonna say
Positive
they want you to
identification.
they
They
want you to
want you to know who
identify.
the baby
Yeah,
daddy is. They really do. They want you to have that
because 'cause they'll come
information.
in with a chip scanner during the inspection, right, and scan
Well,
dogs and make sure
they
that
have a chip scanner for their inspection, but they're gonna ask you for, positive identification on your individual stuff, but I like as soon as those puppies are up and tootling around where you could start or if I'm gonna foster this one with this one, you can start moving things around. As long as they're chipped, you can sort it all out. It doesn't matter. It's not a problem. But just get microchips and a scanner, money well spent.
money well spent. Yep, absolutely. All right, my next one, super generic, but super important, sanitary cleaners. So things to sanitize your kennel, clean, keep it all as sanitary as possible. And we kind of have we we talked about this in an episode. We have like a kennel sanitization episode, so we don't have to dig super deep into this,
Well,
but
exactly, but I had one that kind of fit into that. So I keep a list of everything that we need to have, where it's Clorox, trash bags, every laundry soap, everything we have on there. And so, because, especially if you have people helping you or whatever, it's a good, if at a glance you go, oh, we're going to need dog food. We'll have enough dog food for Thursday. We're going to need trash bags. We're going to need dish soap. We're going to need laundry soap. We're going to, we're going to need bleach, all of that stuff. So I think keeping the list going, because like we've said before, having the kennel is like a little city, and they have their little needs. And I think you need to have paper towels, all of that stuff there, keeping that inventory list where you can really be efficient, especially like I'm gonna, take off and leave for a dog show. I want to make sure everything is we have there that we need to have for while I'm gone. So nobody has to be like, oh no, we don't have fill in the blank. So I think that list is super helpful.
yeah, a list of it is that's I mean, it's like making a grocery list for your house. Like you do it so you don't run out of stuff. And we want to get through the work week, on groceries. So
Hmm.
what about like a water heater? Like how important is that to like an external kennel building?
Super important. Super
Because we think
important
about
because
running water so we can spray out, feed we think about running water to a kennel, an external building. So it's like, oh, we can water the dogs and we can, they can drink and we want to spray out runs or anything like that. You don't ever think like the warm water aspect of it until it comes to grooming.
and I think today that with the tankless hot water heaters, those are super cool, don't take up much room, and so if you're bathing dogs, you're washing dishes, washing laundry, I think you can only get so excited about doing any of those things with all cold water. But you really do need to have, some sort of, I do have a big old hot water heater because our kennel's old, but, if when it goes, we're gonna get tankless because that is the way to do it. We had them in our grooming shops. They were on demand. It was awesome.
And like never run out really, right? I mean,
Never
just
run
kind of
out.
keep chugging.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like as fast as you wanna do it, and you'd probably I think that the on-demand are so much more energy efficient, you know,
Yeah, because they're not heating water. Yeah, a regular water heater is going to keep that tank of 50
the
gallons of
whole tank
water that warm all day long, whether you're using it or
all day
not. And
long.
it's naturally going to cool down. So it's going to have to heat it back up, like energy efficiency. Sure. All right. What else do you
Exactly.
got?
Alright, so I have on the, 'cause we've kinda, like, chopped ours up a little bit, but one thing that is super important that we use is a breeding book, and the breeding book is a spiral notebook with lines, and we put on the breeding book the dog's name, the microchip number, you know, where it's located, when it came in heat, when it bred, who the father is, when it whelped. And so then from the breeding book, you do your wall calendar. So you can turn it off there and take that breeding book and start the dates. Like, okay, that's these dogs, here's to such and such. They're going to need to be, if you're going to want to move them into into pregnancy watch 2 weeks before, this is the date, you know, Buttercup moves up to, da 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 da. And these are the dates we're going to start. If we're going to do any antibiotics or do supplements or do anything here, we have an actual date of knowing when it came in, when it bred, when it will. And you can do your registrations off of that breeding book. You can keep your calendar current on there. And then the next thing is from the calendar and the breeding book, you make your cards. The cards, they're going to go on each individual apartment where you're going to say, you know, mother, father, date of birth, shot dates, worming dates, what day we're going to start pulling the mother away to spend the day to start the weaning process. All of this stuff here. If you do those three things with the breeding book, the calendar, and the cards, you won't miss things. And it sounds remedial and like, oh, that's so basic. Yeah, but throw a few days into there, throw a couple of them in there, and especially if you have to have somebody else helping you, that's really important to be able to go ahead and access that book because, knowing, okay, this needs to be done, this needs to be done. And, it's not rocket science, but it's really, it works out, if it works out really good as far as kennel management, knowing when you need to breed. And like on my calendar, I'll say, I need to progesterone test on this day. I need to breed this bitch on this day, and then her second breeding is on that day, and this is when she's going to whelp. This is when I'm going to, give her maternity trim. All of that is right out of the breeding book, and I'm sure there's some really awesome programs you can do on the phone too, which is great. But the having that copy there, is really
Some of those things like that are, like, super nice to have an app or a computer program for, and then some
sure.
of it's just like, I just need pen and paper, just to write it down because I don't know, like, maybe you're in the middle of grooming and it's like your phone's not super accessible. I don't know. For some reason, maybe I'm just old school still like that. It's like sometimes just the pen and the paper and be able to go look at it right in front of you without having to dig through this app to see what you're looking for. But so, do you have a breeding book for each bitch, or is it your breeding book
Well,
and you
just
write the
no,
bitch's
just
name down and then
for your program, you know, you're gonna go ahead and have that because that's your itinerary. Because if you're gonna say, well, can we go to the Scotts Bluff Dog Show? Well, let's look in the book, and we can look and say, no, we've got a bitch do that day, So who's gonna watch it? That kind of thing. You kind of have a you can kind of do your long-term out type of plans and that kind of thing where you can keep track.
yeah, and the calendar being up is a nice quick glance thing when you walk in the kennel every day. You can see that calendar. It's like, oh, it's Tuesday, January 13th. I know, like, that's what's on the calendar for the day of like, I got to check that stuff or do that. And I think a lot of people are going to think, oh, I can remember this stuff. And it's like, you get past three or four litters that are at different time frames of stuff. It's super easy to think like, oh, this litter is only 4 weeks old. Don't really not worrying about too much. As long as they're latching and they're eating and they're gaining weight, things are good. And then before you know it, it's like, crap, that litter's 10 weeks old and I haven't even started working on wheat. Like it just, it can go fast. And,
It
especially you
it
throw
goes
in like Christmas in there, and then it's like that messes up the week because family's in town or something. And before you know it, it's like, wow, a week just went by, and what did I miss? And it's like
right. You
you got to be diligent
did
with
I
that.
miss the shot dates? Did I miss, whatever, and it happens. Then, like, if you get, because invariably, when you have a number of animals together in a similar area, they're going to sync their seasons up a little bit, and they might be related, litter mates or whatever, and so you just go, "Well, of course I bred, Bobby Joe to Scooter and, Cindy Joe to," but, you know, stop, take a moment, double check yourself because it's super easy when you're tired and you're not paying 100% attention. And then if you get somebody helping you, then it can get really exciting. So
Well, and that's the
those
aspect of that too. Is like if you have kennel help, and it's not just you and your husband or you and your wife that run the kennel all the time, but you go to dog shows and you have somebody that comes over and checks. Like they got to know what to do in those days as well.
absolutely, absolutely. Because, if you do it long enough, everything will happen to you at least once.
No, Yeah, at least. And a lot
for
of it you
sure.
won't even think about until it happens, and then you're like, "There's my lesson for next
New
time," and
rule,
hopefully yeah,
policy.
exactly,
Yeah,
new policy in place.
new policy in place.
So I think you can kinda combine that also with I think something super important is, like, your kennel books, where are you keeping your records, your record keeping program, whether it's shot records, something you can print out, health records for sending home with a puppy, any of your kennel booking type of system. I think that's super important to have as well. And there's so many different ones out there. Like I know you're so used to a certain one that I don't even think takes on. I don't even think it's operational anymore with new people signing up. I think you just get grandfathered in, but there's a few other
Right.
ones out there. So
There's some so along with that, you're gonna have your online book stuff, which is awesome because you can do that stuff with, you can pull shot records and you can do all of that stuff. That's great. But you're going to still need to have a set of files where you're gonna have especially if you have a kennel license, because, if for some reason you're not there and, there has to be a question is like, "This dog this dog positively identified, you know, here's its shot records, here's its rabies, here's this, here's that, all of that stuff. You need to have that interlocking stuff. Now, of course, you don't need to keep as much of that of your registration stuff and all your litter stuff. You can do that all online, but you really should have physical your physical shot records, your rabies certificates, or if you have health testing or whatever that you want to keep with that folder with that particular dog. And I mean, I know it's maybe just a little bit antiquated, but it's makes it if someone has to come in and try to your situation, they may not have your passwords. They may not have access to that. And so that physical copy is could be very important.
yeah, totally agree. What else do you got?
I'm thinking I'm there. I think have we hit 10?
I don't know. I wasn't counting. Well, let's see. Yeah, I mean, between the two of us, there's definitely 10.
Yeah.
How important, so like, say you're designing a kennel from a big open building and it's just like, I'm going to turn this into a kennel. Like, things like how important are different rooms? Is that an important thing? Like, do you want your grooming room a closed off room to try to contain all the hair and everything like that away from everything else? Or, you know, uh, like, is there a need for separate rooms in a lot of it? Or is that kind of,
So all right, that's a pretty reasonable thing. I think that your kennel 101 is gonna first it's gonna break down as to your breed, what your breed needs, you know, then it's gonna your climate, which is your climate need to keep these animals safe and comfortable. Then you're gonna start your first thing is all of your plumbing stuff. So that's gonna be your sinks, your washer, your tub, all of that's gonna be and if you're gonna do any kind of bathroom facility or anything like that for people, that's all gonna be in one spot because you're gonna want that's a thing. And then you're gonna have wherever you're gonna have your tub and all, and that's gonna probably be somewhere near where you're gonna have your dryer and your grooming stuff right there. That's gonna be part of there. But your kennel kind of breaks down into a couple of different components. So first you're gonna have if you have show dogs or dogs you're being kept separate, those dogs that are going to be not running a bunch because they're going to be trying to maintain condition. You don't want someone chewing their ears off or that kind of thing. So you can have your show animals. Oftentimes, people's show animals are kept and turned out by hand. That's a in and out type of thing where you're touching them, feeling their weight 2, 3 times a day, and you really on top of their hair and you can see their condition and all that. So that's area number one. Then area number two is your breeding stock. Your breeding stock, you wanna be able to see them, obviously, but it's nice if those dogs, because their hair is not maybe as crucial to be taken care of, they can have more in and out, unfettered access to running around, and if they get, a tangle or whatever, you're probably gonna go, "Cut it off," right? Or they're clipped off or whatever. And then The one thing that I think that people don't really think about is, and especially if you're going to be breeding, is your nursery. So your nursery needs to be your kind of the safe haven for the moms and the babies, where they're maybe a little bit separated from the dogs that are going to shows, and they don't need the hustle and bustle of the dogs that are just hanging out and living, life in the city, that they don't need that commotion and craziness. Your moms and the babies, that needs to be kind of a separate spot from those other dogs a little bit. They need to have some sort of protection from the hustle bustle, the craziness, the possible germ exposure, all of those things. And I think a lot of people, they forget to put in a spot in their kennel to keep puppies and raise puppies and start weaning puppies, and where are those puppies going to be going to the bathroom? Because I think the most important thing a breeder can do, and this is probably arguable, but it's the most important thing to me and most of the people that I've dealt with, they find it to be very important too. Going outside to go to the bathroom. That
Same
is
here.
a Yeah, yeah. I mean, nobody's so cute that you can poop in the house. So if you and you're way cuter when you poop outside. So potty breaking and having that spot where those puppies can start eating solid food and then have access to go outside. It's amazing to me how babies will just take to they're eating solid food. They want to go out. They want to get out of the den. And if they have a spot that's safe, dry, cleanable, whether it's on a hygienic floor, whether it's on gravel or whatever, patio block where those puppies can go out, go to the bathroom, and then come back in. It makes their brain turn on and they learn that's like this is where we eat and sleep, and this is where, and then when they go to their new people, they go, we're gonna eat and sleep in here, and we're gonna go out here to go potty. They have the concept. And because if you just keep them in a rabbit cage and just change shavings and papers, they learn to poop wherever they are, and you kind of lose that natural going outside part. So I think that having that nursery with it set up, and that those babies are either going to transition into your show dog area or into your breeding stock area or into their new homes. But that nursery area is a kind of a biggie.
Oh, that's really good. That's something that a lot of people don't think about. So, I mean, and that is something that I think about when I'm thinking about, designing a kennel or doing something is just like, what separate areas do you need? How do you want to separate different dogs? I mean, some people even do like a boy room where all the boys are kind of just kept so you can keep them contained and don't have any accidental breedings because the boys, a boy yard separate from where the girls get to go out and run. So, a lot of cool aspects of it like that.
Yeah, it depends a little, like I say, a little bit on your breed. Depends, like, and when you start running dogs together, like, they have some breeds you can put more together than others. Some breeds don't do well with that. Like, in the state of Oklahoma, they allow people to run up to 6 dogs together. That's their magic number. I don't know where they came up with that, but it's okay. 6 dogs. But if you're running a number of them together in, like, a communal setting, then you're probably gonna need to stop and separate them out and feed them individually, because you get more than a few into one area. If it's like a communal feeding thing, somebody might not get fed,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. That's possible. Someone could get voted off the island. Someone could guy going, "Hey, we all hate her," that kind of thing.
Bye bye. You're
"Bye-bye.
done.
You're out. We put the tribe has spoken."
Yeah. All right. I think that's a really solid list. Gives some people some good ideas, whether they're building a kennel, moving a kennel, or just have had a kennel for a long time. It's like, oh crap, I don't have fire extinguishers. I should probably do that. Or I don't have an
Yeah.
emergency plan. Hopefully this will help somebody out there. Anything else to add?
Yeah. I hope they never need to use it. I hope they do it. All the emergency prep stuff, I hope they never, ever have to use it, because that is the biggest win.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining this episode of the TACBox podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, like, all the fun stuff. Join us on Facebook, and we will be back next week with episode 44. No idea what the topic is yet, but you'll find out
It
when
could
it'll
come.
be great. Yeah, exactly. All right, everybody. Have a great day. We'll talk to you guys soon. Bye bye now.
Bye bye.
If you've made it this far, you've made it to the end of the podcast, and we extremely appreciate you for listening to the whole episode. It helps us grow. It shows the algorithms that you're engaged with the TACBox podcast. You're the best of the best, and we appreciate it. Don't forget, we come out with a new episode every Wednesday, and we would love for you to continue to join us. Also, hit us up on Facebook. We have a Facebook group, the TACBox podcast. We have the page. Like it. And send your questions in. Help us grow.